The early reports out of the Trump administration are exactly what we feared they might be. And apparently, at least his focus on cutting Medicaid, food stamps, and other safety net programs appears that Republicans in Congress are more than happy to go along with this. Will the Democrats in Congress be able to slow them down or stop them? Well, that is a good question for Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who represents Illinois' 1st District. Jonathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Great to hear your voice, Joan.
Good to talk to you. You know, when we talked at the Democratic National Convention, I kind of thought that the next time we talked, it would be a different world. It would be a world with Kamala Harris as president and Democratic control of the House at the very least. But that's not the world that we seem to be living in. So what kinds of actions, discussions are Democrats having right now to figure out what they can do to staunch the worst of the stuff coming our way?
Well, you know, it's been a week and seems like it's been eternity.
Oh, my God.
Already.
Is it only a week? Oh, heaven help me.
Been a week. And then you think about what's going on 10 days or so, and you think about welcoming your colleagues into the new Congress. Now you're probably introducing people into the new Coliseum. That there's very little margin on either side. So, for example, we're going to probably end up with 213, 215 out of a total of 435. But currently, the Trump administration has plucked 3 Republicans for his cabinet. So now their numbers are down from 220 to 218 to 217. So the margin is not very much for them to play with. I would tell you the good news is that you look across the country, we've been, the Democrats under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries, he did a marvelous job in a sea of red. 90% of the frontliners, those that were in the most vulnerable districts, won. So he did his part. Now, as for the consultants and some of the other people, they need a new generation. Some of those just simply need to go because their math was all wrong. They weren't listening to the American people. On that, I say congratulations to President Trump, but also we will be the loyal opposition not to concede 1 inch, particularly on this SNAP program that's under the Agriculture Committee that I'm on. That's affecting roughly 47 million people, and it's a mean spirit to cut $30 billion out that will harm women and children. So we're going to stand ourselves firm. And I tell you, I think of this almost in the play of Macbeth. You're just going to see a huge surge of power, and you're going to see these people on Donald Trump's team just cannibalize each other. It starts at the top. It's not a spirit of harmoniously working together. It's not very much goal-oriented, and half the things he said he wants to do, he materialistically cannot do. How do you move 10, 12 million people out of the country? What does that impact will it have on the economy and on each individual state and crop season and other hotel and other service industries and even manufacturing? And when you say America first, are you telling other countries to look at themselves as second class and go last? No, then you encourage other people to look at themselves first. And so, and God bless him, and I pray, if you can believe it or not, even for his health and strength, I hope he doesn't get done what he wants to do. But the man is 80 years old. I mean, you can't wake up every day angry and fighting. At some point, you got to say, how does this all work, and how can we make it better? And he's going to find there are many Democrats that are willing to work to make it better. But all this bravado and name-calling and misogyny and some of the people around him that have hatred, that will not work well for him.
I know that the new Congress is officially sworn in on January 3rd. So if the people he's tapped on the Republican side accept the positions that they're being offered, does that mean that as of January 3rd, they're gone? I mean, do they have to resign from Congress to do these jobs?
Yes, they will have to resign from Congress. Yes, we get sworn in on January 3rd when the confirmations begin. And when that happens, each state has roughly 10 days to announce their special election. So members of the Senate can be appointed by the governor, but only members of Congress can be elected by the people. That's why they call it the People's House. That's why the Speaker of the House is second in succession for the presidency after the vice president. So those will be special elections, 3 of them so far.
And I have another question about the budget. There have been articles written that rather than going for an omnibus budget, one vote, get everything paid for the next foreseeable future, that Mike Johnson wants to split it up into as many as 12 different budget bills. And some are speculating that part of the reason he wants to do this is to give Donald Trump a hand. Like Donald Trump said he wanted to get rid of the Department of Education. Well, if that's a lengthy process and requires litigation and this and that, Mike Johnson could help him by simply not funding the Department of Education. Don't pass that bill. Don't even bring that bill up for a vote. Is that what you think is going to be happening in Congress?
Yes, I've heard over and over again, and this goes back to the Reagan era on David Stockton, one of the economists that were talking about starving the beast. So certain agencies that the Republicans don't want, they simply say defund. And I would tell you off the top of my head, it might have been 12 or so defund bills that I remember coming to the floor this year. And even like with Secretary Mayorkas or Health and Human Services, when they get upset with someone, they say they put a bill on the floor to say, let's remove the Secretary of Education's budget down to, for his salary down to $1. So they play a lot of mean games like that.
So is that one way where the Department of Education could basically be dismantled if there is literally no funding for the people who work there?
You're making me shudder. I hope that's not the case, but that is certainly what they have said. So you're quoting them 100%. I try to give people a level of comfort and not the heightened level of anxiety, but you're reporting the news and you're reporting it accurately, I must say, and that is very well laid out in his Project 2025 manifesto created by the Heritage Foundation. And the other part is they want to move a lot of those funds to go into block grants to go into vouchers that they can use at the state level for schools, to defund the public schools another way. And I remember seeing a picture in Congressman Bobby Rush's office, and it was George Bush waving, heading towards the helicopter. And I asked Congressman Rush, so why do you have that picture? So I can remember nobody lasts here forever, So I'm going to see if I can get a picture of Mr. Trump waving. So I look forward to working with him and look forward to being the loyal opposition and look forward to trying to make things better. The hunger is a huge issue. The 1st Congressional District has the highest level of diabetes in the nation. So that's something that's a real priority for me. So there are things that I want to do to make life better for people, and that's what I'll be focusing on.
Congressman Jackson, there's more that I want to talk to you about, but we need to take a real quick break. We'll be back in just a couple of seconds with Congressman Jonathan Jackson, represents Illinois' 1st District. We'll be back right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I am joined by Illinois Congressman Jonathan Jackson. Jonathan, Donald Trump recently has said that his first order of business, he claims on the day he's inaugurated, that he is going to declare a national emergency so that he can mobilize the military to start rounding up immigrants. Can he do that? Is that legal?
I'd like to get back to you on that, but I would say that the president is also the chief commanding officer. So the military serves at his pleasure, and I'm sure there's some safety blocks that we can use in the United States Senate, but I would like to get back to you and answer that question specifically.
And I have to get your
impression. But Joan, please let me just finish this one point, and thank you. Is that I've seen these sort of immigrant roundup things before, and one of the more hurtful things I've ever experienced being a professor at Chicago State was one of the students had thought about committing suicide because he was here. His parents had brought him here, and his paperwork was never right. And he was 19 years of age. He came here at 3. So there's some level of compassion that has to be granted children that are caught up in the middle of this that industry has profited from. So that's a very hard issue for me on. I want to let us enforce the law, let us have some humane priorities, but I don't want to start a reign of terror and having some people have the unintended consequences of suicide because, as we're talking about, it doesn't affect us directly. So if someone else is listening to this, that I think we owe them some level of comfort to say we will fight this. So don't take it to the extreme, please.
And it's aside from the children, I got a call last week from an Italian woman who said that she'd been in this country for a very long time, but that she had just never bothered to take the tests and become a citizen. And she actually called to talk about something else, but explained that as part of the conversation. And I'm terrified for people like that. Because, there are immigrants in this country that may not have gone all the way through the process, but they've got jobs, they pay taxes. Because their status is up in the air, they don't get any of the services that the rest of us are entitled to. I mean, I'm really worried about those folks.
I mean, I am worried, and at this stage, I would say to let them know there will be a fight, give it some level of comfort, but even large industries, they can't to move 10, 12 million people out. You're talking about collapsing real estate values. You're talking about collapsing local economies. I think that conversation was more bravado. The president has a lot of influence. I think he's going to test the limits to see what exactly is his power on what he can do. And for those that would staunchly disagree with this and see the collateral damage and the human misery, I would hope there would be people of good conscience to say, no, we will deal with this in an orderly manner. I mean, that we don't worship a king in this country. So we will have some democratic processes to work through.
Yeah. Donald Trump has so far appointed a shocking number of wildly unqualified people, like Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth. Is there anything? I know that the Senate has to decide if they're going to recess and give him all of these appointments carte blanche, or if there are going to be hearings. That's kind of out of Congress's hands, isn't it?
Yes, there are some rules on the recess, but you also have, as Mr. Gaetz was trying to avoid a sex suit. The other gentleman, Hedge, something was trying to avoid a sex case. I see a dark day for women, and I am highly confident we're going to get this back on track in the right direction. And I think, just like in Macbeth, you're going to see just this power rush. You're going to see people that are not doing things necessarily for the best of the country, but things that are best for themselves. And I think America's going to have a very low tolerance for that. And if he tries to go through some of these big things that he said on the campaign trail that some people weren't necessarily listening to, once he tries to implement them, I would encourage people to get ready for demonstrations and massive resistance, because we're better than this.
Yeah. How long do you think it'll be before Donald Trump gets tired of Elon Musk? I'm just curious. Should we start a pool, Jonathan?
Yeah, I thought it was a week ago, but but we will see. I mean, after he's won, what does he need you for? It reminds me of like the Huey Long story when the gentleman says, Huey Long said, the governor of Louisiana, there'll be a chicken in every pot and I'll give you work. And then finally a man had been trying to reach him, called him, mailed him, saw him and said, Governor Long, I've been trying to reach you. You said I would have a job and a chicken in my pot. And Governor Long looked at the man and said, I lied.
Oh. Oh, okay.
So,
that actually speaks to a lot of the voters in this election. I've seen reporters interview people who voted for Trump, and I hear things like, well, I'm an immigrant, but he's not going to deport me because I'm a good immigrant. He's only going to deport people who've, broken the rules. And I'm thinking to myself, did you ever listen to this guy you voted for? So many people seemed to believe some kind of polished image of Donald Trump. Oh, he's not going to do the things he says. He just says that for effect, But wait a minute. In his first administration, he actually tried to do everything he said he was going to do. I don't understand why people believe the PR around Trump and don't see the reality. Do you have any insight into that?
He does the otherism. He makes everyone feel as if they've got someone else to hate. And before you know it, we've seen this play out in some parts of German history. They come from one group, then another group, then another group. And then pretty soon there was no one to stand for one another. So you have to, when you see this canary in the mine and see the toxicity in the air, when you judge their words, and all we have to do is go by their words. When you look at like a Stephen Miller that's a part of his cabinet that will be deputy chief of staff, he is a vile figure. So you're going to see this hatred. I know the hatreds end up consuming itself. And this is put shockwaves in so many governments around the country. And no, he's not going to be able to do half the things that he says. But in that manifesto, or Project 2025, he lays this out. It's 922 pages. I'd be glad to go over some of the stuff in detail. You tell me which section that you want. But
I've read a lot of it. It's like a booklet of horrors, government bureau by government bureau. Here's how we're going to take it apart. Here's how we're going to replace all the loyal civil servants with people who are only loyal to Donald Trump. And then here's how we're going to twist it and what it does and its mission. Is there a part of 2025 that's less than horrifying?
And the loyal government workers, the way he is badgering them, these are people that have chosen to go into the civil society to do public works, and they administer, and they're very good at what they do. He's saying they will go away, and so those that understand the processes and the application of the law, he wants to get rid of them to have people that are ideologically bound. If you call them to the IRS or any of these agencies, they're not necessarily going for your ethnicity or race or anything. They just want to do their job to make sure you filled out the box and that you are entitled to your refunds and that you pay what the government needs to sustain itself. He is now trying to make people, to tell people these two are enemies. People in the press that ask questions, these are enemies. And he's just fueling hate, which is what really disturbs me and really has me angst at times. But watch it in the next few weeks and you start hearing these quotes and some of these characters when they start doing background checks on who he has nominated. You're going to say, oh, my God, how does someone know these type of people?
Yeah. Let alone want to put them in positions of authority. Though, Donald Trump did say last week that apparently the idea that the FBI does a background check, it's never actually been written into law. It's just always been the practice. And I don't know if they'll let him get away with it. But Trump said, yeah, you know what? Rather than the FBI doing background checks, I would rather hire a private company to do the background checks, and it got reported. It doesn't seem to be one of the big issues that Republicans are wrestling with right now. I don't know. Maybe he was just floating a balloon. Let's hope so. But, he knows these people aren't going to survive background checks, for God's sake.
Right, and the FBI, they do a great job. They would know, and they would have the interest of the American people first. It's a dark age, and I think when you see this rollout of what's happening with women's reproductive issues, and it was never about abortion. The same people that don't want women to have autonomy over their body to make decisions are the same ones that say poor women have too many children. I mean, we've already been through this. There are some people that actually believe in eugenics, that think there are better species and couples and races that marry together, and others are not as pure blood, that they are poisoning the blood of our country. Listen to the words he's saying.
Yeah.
We've already heard these words before in history, and they're very eerie. And they start with some very wealthy people. This level of indecency and eugenics, that didn't start with poor, unemployed people. That started with the mathematicians and the scientists that went on to implement these racial laws.
Jonathan, thank you so much for being here today. I love talking with you. Take care of yourself, okay?
Okay, Joan, I'll be back.